Welcome to Prayers of the Dice Gods. I'm Alan, and today we are painting one of the big boys. We're going to be doing one of the Mcfarlane Space Marines because these things are pretty cool, and it's a great way to learn to paint larger models. So, like their counterparts, the smaller Games Workshop Space Marines, these guys need cleaning up. There is, in actual fact, mould lines all over the place. Some are a little bit fiddlier than others, but we need to go around and make sure that they're off. And then, of course, we've got to prime the model ready for painting. I've never painted anything this big, so I was doing a little bit of experimentation here. So I did some undershading before we put the green on. I thinned the green right down, trying to put that over the top. Realised that it wasn't going to work the way I was hoping, and so just decided to hit it with a straight solid coat of green through the airbrush, make sure that the model was all nice and ready to be highlighted and shaded. Once I had the green on, I went straight into doing the undersuit with some Abaddon black, trying to make sure we had a nice solid coat, and then instantly realising that this is going to be a real pain in the neck because it has moving parts. That paint's going to scrape off. So I started adding in, as I went along, extra coats of varnish just to make sure that that paint stuck. In total, there was about 20 coats of varnish put onto this model, but it's well worth it because it stops that paint scraping off. Now next up we begin the highlights on the green armour, and that is simply by using the base colour we had, adding a bit of yellow to that in progressive stages, and then going around the whole of the model, highlighting all of the bits that are likely to be upwards facing to give it that kind of, it's reflecting some light, give some extra contrast to that armour. So in order to shade the green, what we're going to do is we're going to start with our base coat. We're going to start adding in little bits of the orc flesh contrast paint to darken that up. We're going to be very careful with the airbrush at this point. We don't want to ruin those highlights we've been working on, and we're going to go around the model and put in the shading exactly where we want it. Time for the first big job with the paintbrush. We're going to go around, or we are going to do all of the panel lining. So this just involves going around every single panel and area that changes to give it a nice definition line. We're simply doing this just with some really dark green. In actual fact, it's just slightly darker than what we finished doing the shading. Once we'd done all that, we got started with the edge highlights. Now this has got to be the longest stage because it's such a large model, but it's well worth doing properly. So we go around using the last shade that we had for the highlight, which we took from the airbrush and just put into a small pot. And then we went for a straight yellow to give extra shine points along those upward edges. Now we do the same thing for the black parts, so we do a little bit of work on the gun as well as the backpack. Same idea, try and make those fades from almost whitey grey through to the black again, just from above so it matches up with that green. Once the green was all highlighted, we moved on to highlighting the black on the backpack. Doesn't take quite as long, give those extra upward shine points to match along with that green armour. So this model was for a friend of mine. I asked him how he wanted it done. He requested NMM on the weapon and, obviously the chest eagle. I didn't manage to film that for some reason, but we did gold NMM on the chest, as well as some silver on the belt buckle. We move on to the actual weapon, which took nearly as long to do as the whole of the rest of the model. But with a lot of wet blending and glazing, we eventually get the silver on the gun looking exactly how we want it to. Now working around the model, we're filling in some details, things like the little scanner panel on his wrist. We're going to add in some detail there so it looks like it's actually a scanner and it is working. He requested that he get some flames on the legs so that we clearly could see that this guy is a salamander, because let's face it, they're from a planet that's stupidly hot and their favourite weapons are flamers. I did end up finishing that with the airbrush rather than with the paintbrush. It turned out I could do the blends quicker and easier because time was a constraint here. Next up we're doing some work on some battle damage to the armour, just some scratches, and some bits that look like they're slightly deeper. I think it came out really well. I showed this off on TikTok live to a friend of mine and he thought that the model came with that damage, so I think I did a fairly good job with that paint. Did some freehand on his shoulder pad to put in the Salamander's symbol. I simply did that by drawing it on with a pencil and then trying to do it with the paintbrush. They're slightly darker colours than you want at the end. Finished up with the white and then added some little bits of battle damage to it as well. Once I added some weathering powders just to finish that off to make him properly look like he's actually been in battle. Here's the completed model. I think you can agree he looks very nice, and I had a very, very happy client.